Hey, welcome to my Reader's Journal. Today I'm going to be talking about Mexican Whiteboy by Peña. I do want to preface this video by saying that I wasn't supposed to make this video. Like, this video wasn't supposed to exist. At the beginning of the year, I had gone through my bookshelves and I was trying to figure out what books I was going to get rid of, which ones I was going to take to have price books, and this was one of them. I originally, if I had made this video without rereading it, I would have told you it was 2 stars. It bored me to death, was putting me to sleep, and I just wasn't vibing with it. Like, that's all I remember. And for whatever reason, I had the thought to go to YouTube to try to see if other people had reviewed the book. And I found a couple of videos. I watched one, and the person liked the book. And I was like, okay, well, what are the chances that the first one I clicked on was someone that liked it? So, like, I checked the second review, and they liked it as well. And then I was like, okay. So I check on the third review and they were also liking the book. And I was like, did we read the same book? So I was like, well, maybe I missed something. So I decided not to take it to Half Price Books. The first time I read it, I think, was almost 3 years ago in 2022. And I was like, well, let me reread it again this year and see how I feel about it. And I'm going to tell you right away, my rating doesn't change. I think it's still 2 out of 5. Like, I don't necessarily like the book. I am thankful though that I did reread it because now I am able to actually talk more about it because I think this one deserves a discussion. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and read the summary that's in the back. That way you get some context of what it is, and then I'm gonna explain some things without really spoiling it. So it says, nobody paid him any attention anyway because he was Mexican. Nobody even saw him as a real person. Danny's brown, half Mexican brown, and growing up in San Diego, that close to the border, means everyone thinks they know exactly who he is before he even opens his mouth, before they found out he can't speak Spanish, and before they realize his mom has blonde hair and blue eyes. But it works in the other way too, and Danny's convinced that his whiteness has sent his father back to Mexico. That's why he's spending the summer with his dad's family, only to find himself he may just have to face the demons he refuses to see, the demons that are right in front of his face, and open up to a friendship he never saw coming. So, when I first read the book, or I first grabbed the book, I knew obviously that this is about someone who is biracial, having some identity crisis between being half white, half Mexican. And I thought that this was going to be a interesting journey to go through, like someone. I'm not able to connect with this on a racial aspect because I'm full Mexican, but as someone who was born in Mexico but grew up in the US, I can identify with the identity, I guess, crisis or confusion of, like, I grew up with a Hispanic culture, but I also grew up in a society that's American. And sometimes you have that divide of, like, well, when I'm with my Mexican family, because I grew up in a American society, some of that is a part of who I am now, and I'm not able to fully connect with um, like Mexican relatives that are in Mexico, and then vice versa with people that if I go somewhere that where it's only like American, I'm not able to fully connect with them because I grew up differently. I watch different shows, I listen to different music, I eat different food. So sometimes they'll mention something, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I thought it was going to be something interesting to read about, and I was disappointed. I think that overall, there really wasn't a solid plot for this book. I thought that what the author was trying to do in a general sense was fine, and then even having a character that can have that internal conflict of identity was interesting, but it doesn't deliver. It This struggle that Danny's the main character. The struggle that Denny has, it's repeated in the book multiple times, right? He has resentment for his white side, and then he also feels disconnected from his Mexican side. And that struggle, that internal conflict, is continuously repeated in the book. But then there's nothing in the book that really fixes that. He doesn't make an attempt to learn Spanish. He doesn't really spend, or at least we don't see him spend and grow and really accept his Mexican culture. He's just there with his cousin. So, just to give some context of how the story opens up, basically, Danny at the start of the story is living with his mom and his sister. His mom, as I said in the back of the summary, is the one that's white. His dad is the one that's Mexican, and his dad at the moment isn't in the picture. And at the start of the story, we don't necessarily know why. We just know that he isn't around, but he's still alive. And we also learn that mom is dating a white guy, and that guy, his name is Randy, invites like the whole family to live with him in San Francisco because he plans to really like bring them into like his family. Like he wants to marry the mom and like for them to be a family. So he offers that, and Danny refuses to go, so he stays with his cousin's family from his dad's side in San Diego, National City. Sorry, National City. But he decides to stay there. And so for the rest of the story, they're in National City, and Danny is becoming friends with his cousin Sophia, uh, her friends. So he's becoming friends with them, and then he's learning about himself and everything. And I put that on quote because I'm going to talk about later on how I don't agree that he necessarily made substantial growth, but that's the overlaying plot. There's also baseball connected to this. Like he is passionate about baseball, but even that I have a gripe with because his dad. Okay, so dad left, right? Dad's not in the picture, and Danny is putting so much work into baseball because he wants to be noticed by his dad. He thinks that if his baseball pitching is so good, he's gonna be get noticed by his dad. His dad's gonna come back, or his dad's gonna want to be around him, and he's really putting that connection with his father into baseball. And he's also blaming himself for his father leaving because he thinks that his whiteness, like him being half white, is the reason that dad left. So that is also part of the reason why he's resenting Randy, and he doesn't want to go to San Francisco with the rest of his family because he's like, no, like this is the whole reason dad left. Like he doesn't want to accept that like white part of himself, so he decides to go and stay with his cousin's family. So I think that in general, that's a good foundation for a story, but then the rest doesn't add up, and that's what I'm gonna explain with the spoilers. So I'm gonna stop here for the non-spoiler stuff. If you want to keep watching, you it's gonna go through spoilers. If you want to read the book first, then stop here and then just come back in the future. But spoilers. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is go over one of the points which I think is going to be a good starting off point for the spoiler stuff is that the for me the character development isn't fleshed out or meaningful. So starting off with Danny, I think that his character development in the book wasn't a development. If there was any development of any sort, it was either too quick or it was very elementary in a sense. So again, at the beginning of the story, you have Danny who's resenting his white side, but also feeling disconnected with his Mexican side. So when he is in National City with his cousin and everything, you would think that hey, this story is gonna tackle that and have him um, learn more about his Mexican culture, embrace it more, learn Spanish because he hadn't learned Spanish in the past. So you would think that now he would put the effort to learn Spanish. No, he doesn't. So to me, that isn't much of a development on that part of his character. And even with him resenting his white part, he also doesn't make amends with that at the end of the book. Like he moves back in with his mom at the end of the book, but there's no real reconcile, right? So I just don't think it was fleshed out. I don't think it was well done. Going with Uno, I put that Uno doesn't learn anything. He was a good character to have in the book, but ultimately he doesn't learn anything. He was also living in a place that he wanted to move away from, right? He was living with his mom and his stepdad, and he didn't want to be in there anymore. So he wanted to move back in with his biological dad, who apparently has fixed up his whole life, right? And in order to do that, he had to earn money to then go um, live with his biological dad. And Uno, at the beginning of the story, was kind of hot headed. He was causing trouble, right? And at the end of the book, there's a scene when they are doing their baseball pitches with Danny's home team. That at the end, there's this kid, I forgot his name, but was making racist remarks. And you would think that after everything that Uno's biological dad was telling him, that Uno wouldn't act out and try to like fight the guy, right? But no, he still tries to fight the guy. So to me, that just doesn't show any development because again, you start off one way, you end the same way, just in a different location. To me, that's not development. And then I also didn't like that we didn't see the moment that Uno tells his mom that he's moving out, and we don't see Uno moving in with his dad. So this story ends with none of that happening. There was a part of the book that teased him telling his mom, but his mom basically put out the fact that she was pregnant now, and Uno didn't have a chance to say anything. And I thought that it was such a missed opportunity because it would have been really nice to have that scene of Uno meeting his dad's current wife and then being a part of that family now. I think that that would have been nice to see, but that's not in here. And even the conversation that he could have had with his mom of, hey, I'm moving out, like moving in with my dad, like the situation that he's in there with her and his stepdad, that he doesn't like it, he doesn't see himself progressing in that space, would have been nice to see. Doesn't happen? No. So that's where we're at. I will say that Danny's pitching is quite literally the only interesting aspect of this whole story, right? Danny is essentially this prodigy, right? This baseball prodigy, and he is striking out people left and right. And you would think that him having this mental block of, yeah, when he's by himself, he is able to do it, or if he's like with a couple of his friends, like yeah, he's able to pitch really well and be this awesome legend and whatnot. But then when like the stakes are on, like he fumbles it and he isn't really able to perform how he's supposed to. And again, good foundation for a good story, but that problem basically fixes itself in one page and a 180, and then after that it's not an issue. So for me, I had a problem with that because it just seemed like a really fast fix, kind of like a cop out. So that's where I'm at with that. Another thing that I wrote down that I really want to talk about is Danny choosing to go see his dad at the end. I thought was a dumb decision. I'm not gonna lie. Throughout this book, you're getting Danny and you're seeing him and you're getting his inner thoughts and everything that's happened to him. He learns that his dad was abusive. He learns that his dad has essentially anger issues, um, and he sees that with his uncle Ray as well. And he's making those connections, and he eventually knows that his dad had hit his mom before, and his dad is in jail now. He's not in Mexico. He's in jail. That's why he hasn't been around. And I think so, kind of connecting it to what I was talking about in the beginning, Danny connecting baseball to his dad, I think would have been such a good choice if the ending of the story had Danny choosing baseball because he really actually enjoyed it, not because he doesn't want the attention of his dad anymore, just because he actually really enjoys it and wants to play that game. Now, maybe that is what happens, but it's very surface level. Like it doesn't go deep. And then him having his identity issues, and again, everything's stemming from his dad, right? His dad wasn't in the picture. He's blaming himself, he's blaming his white side, and he's wanting to embrace more of his Mexican side. I think that if then at the end of the book he was able to accept and embrace his Mexican side, learn Spanish, really be a part of that culture that he feels disconnected, but then also reconciling with the fact that like his white side, like he shouldn't be, um I guess, ignoring it. He shouldn't be putting it in the back burner. Like that is still a part of him, right? His mom is still a part of him, and I think that should have also been part of the story, and it wasn't. And I think him embracing both fully now, knowing that dad is out of the picture because of the way that his dad is, and not because of the way that Danny is. I think that would have been such a good healing moment for him, and that doesn't happen. And when Uno tells Danny that he knows where his dad is and that he can take him, I'm over here thinking Danny should decide no, I don't want to see him. He was a big reason for a lot of his internal conflict. And I think it would have just made sense for Danny to be like, I don't want to talk to him. Like maybe in the future I will, but right now, like, I don't want to talk to him. I just want to be with my family, like the ones that are here for me. And that doesn't happen. Granted, at the end of the story, we don't know 100% sure if Danny really does go see his dad or what happens with that interaction if he does, because the book ends with Danny and Uno basically watching the sunrise the morning before they go and see the dad. So we don't know exactly what happens after that, but I just wish that wasn't part of it. And then I also do want to point out really quickly that one of the main, I guess, characterizations of Danny was that whenever he was feeling anxious or having this like internal conflict, like he would start basically harming himself, digging his nails into his arms. And at the end, well, an ending portion of the book has him actually, and I think that was so random in the sense because there's nothing after that incident and after his cousin Sophia sees him and like helps him like clean it up and everything, nothing happens after that. And I'm not someone who's against having that in books because it is a part of people's lives and it is a part of society that we need to acknowledge, and also we need to, I think, having something that can help people understand it will help us understand people a lot more. But my issue with it is more so that there just wasn't anything afterwards. Like there was no conclusion to it, there was no further mention of it. So ultimately, for my final rating, I think, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm still going to give this a 2-star rating because I think it has some foundational things that are strong. And I think with the correct story beats, it could have been a good book, but the way it was executed, to me, it just didn't hit. I know that this book is beloved by other people, and honestly, if you like it, I'm happy for you because I wasn't able to enjoy that. I just have too many issues with it, and to me, things just don't make sense. And hopefully, I was able to actually express why I'm having issues with it, and it's not just me rambling and making nonsense, right? But I am still gonna read two more of Matt de la Peña's books. I'm reading We Were Here, and then Superman Dawnbreaker, which I'm actually gonna read before I watch the Superman movie, or maybe afterwards. But just around that time frame, just because in that time frame I kind of want to be in that Superman mode, kind of in a sense. But that's where I'm at with the book. I don't like it. I think that it had ideas that could have been interesting if they were executed correctly, right? Having this identity crisis, but then at the end embracing both and being, um, I guess, just attuned to like who he is would have been interesting to see, but we don't see that. Him reconciling the fact that his father isn't there, but knowing that his mom is there, knowing that his cousin's family is there for him, I think would have been interesting, but we don't see that. But ultimately, that's what I have with the book. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. Let's see, anybody else? I liked Sophia's character, like the cousin. I liked her characterization. I also did like that she had that romance with Uno at the end. Didn't have any issues with that. I was kind of thrown off by the slang and the language and I guess the profanity that was being used in the book, especially since this is supposed to be a young adult book, and I think some middle schoolers have read it before. So I was thrown off by it, but ultimately, not a huge deal because that's also how people talk. So it is what it is. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and leave a like, comment what you think about the book, or comment what you think about my thoughts. I'm pretty open to other opinions. Like I said, I didn't enjoy it, but I know other people have, so I don't really have an issue with that. Like if other people enjoy it, good for you. I just didn't. Um, Subscribe to see more videos, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.